He hadn't planned to stop. Not at that rundown gas station. Not on that day. But when a weary father stumbled upon 3 hungry children digging through trash and a silent mother who had almost given up, one simple act of kindness unraveled a chain of events that would change their lives forever. This isn't just a story of survival. It's about finding family in the most unexpected place. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and like the video. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. The sun had already begun its slow descent behind the dusty hills of Nevada when Nathan Cole pulled his truck into a quiet, nearly forgotten rest stop. The air was dry, still, and heavy with the scent of asphalt and desert sand. The old truck rattled as it came to a stop, the engine giving one last groan before falling silent. Inside the cab, his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was fast asleep, curled up with her favorite stuffed rabbit. Her small chest rose and fell gently as the world outside grew darker. Nathan sat for a moment, staring through the cracked windshield. He hadn't eaten since morning. His wallet held less than $10, and the tank was close to empty. For weeks now, they had been living inside the truck, moving from town to town, job to job, chasing hope that kept slipping just out of reach. He rubbed his eyes and sighed. The rest stop was quiet. One flickering streetlight hummed nearby. The vending machines stood broken, their glass cracked as if they too had given up. As he stepped out of the truck, stretching his back and legs, he noticed movement near the edge of the building. At first, he thought it was animals, but as his eyes adjusted to the fading light, he saw them. 2 children, maybe 7 or 8 years old, digging quietly through a trash bin. They moved carefully, avoiding noise, glancing around nervously. They weren't playing. They were searching. Nathan's heart dropped. They were both thin. One boy wore a shirt several sizes too big. The girl's shoes had holes in the front. Their faces were streaked with dust, and their eyes had the kind of silence that didn't belong to children. He didn't speak right away. He didn't want to scare them. But something inside him stirred. He walked slowly to the back of his truck and opened the cooler. He had 1 sandwich left. It wasn't much, but it was more than what they had. Just as he turned back around, a 3rd figure appeared from behind the building. A woman, tall, thin, and tired. Her clothes were worn, her shoulders slightly hunched, but her eyes were sharp, alert. She didn't yell or rush. She simply stood nearby, watching her children with quiet worry. Nathan recognized that look. It was the same one he had worn too many times. He approached, not sure what to say. The boy saw him first and stepped in front of the girl protectively. Nathan stopped a few feet away, crouched down, and held out the sandwich. "I've got food," he said gently, "if you're hungry." The boy didn't move, but the girl peeked out from behind him, her eyes wide and unsure. Then a voice, barely above a whisper. "Please, food." Those 2 words felt like a punch to the chest. Nathan placed the sandwich on the curb and stepped back. The kids hesitated, then moved forward. The boy grabbed the sandwich and handed it to his sister. She held it like it was something sacred. The woman finally walked closer. Her face was pale, her lips dry, but she nodded politely at Nathan. "Thank you," she said softly. "You okay?" he asked, knowing how foolish the question sounded. She hesitated, then gave a small nod, but her eyes said something else. Nathan looked back at his truck. Lily was still sleeping. He turned again to the woman. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" Another pause. Then she spoke, voice even. "Almost practiced. We're parked around back, an old station wagon. It runs, but barely. We've been moving for days." Nathan didn't press her. He knew the look of someone who had run out of places to go. He had lived that life too. "I'm Nathan," he said. "Marie," she replied. "These are my kids, Eli and June." He nodded again. There was nothing else to say, nothing that would fix anything. Period. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the desert grew cold, Nathan did something he hadn't planned. He walked to his truck, gently woke Lily, and said they were going to share dinner. He pulled out a second sandwich he had saved for the next day, split it in half, and brought it to Marie and her kids. They all sat together on the curb, not talking much, just eating, quietly, like people who had carried too many worries for too long. As the stars began to appear overhead, Marie looked at Nathan and said, almost as if to herself, "I didn't think anyone would stop." Nathan didn't answer. He just looked at her, then at the children, then at Lily, who was laughing softly at something June had said. He felt it then, that familiar ache, the one that said, "You're not alone in this." And for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like a man on the edge of losing everything. He felt like a man who had just found something worth holding on to. Morning came slowly to the old desert rest stop. The light was soft, filtered through clouds of dust that hovered just above the horizon. Nathan sat on the tailgate of his truck, sipping the last of his coffee from a paper cup. Lily was drawing shapes in the dirt with a stick, her hair tangled from sleep, but her smile easy. Across the lot, Marie stood beside her car. The hood was open. Steam rose faintly into the cool air. Her children, Eli and June, were still asleep in the back seat. They had curled up under a thin blanket, worn with time, their feet sticking out the end. The station wagon looked like it had once belonged to someone who believed in road trips and open skies. Now it looked like it had carried more pain than miles. Nathan walked over slowly. He didn't want to startle her. Marie was wiping her hands with a rag, her face unreadable. "Any luck?" he asked, nodding toward the engine. She shook her head. "Radiator shot. We've been refilling it every couple hours just to keep going." Nathan didn't know much about cars, but he knew what survival looked like. And this was pure survival. "Do you want help?" he asked. She paused, then gave a small shrug. "Unless you've got a new radiator in your back pocket, I don't think it'll matter." Her tone wasn't sharp, just tired, worn down in a way that couldn't be fixed with tools. He looked at her closely. She hadn't said much the night before, and even now her words were few. But it was her silence that spoke the loudest, a silence filled with decisions no one should have to make. "You're not from around here, are you?" Nathan asked. "No," she replied. "Left Arizona about 3 weeks ago. We've been stopping wherever the car gives out." He nodded. "You got anyone to call?" She looked down, wiping her hands again. "No one." Nathan didn't push further. He understood that kind of answer. For a few minutes, they just stood tea. The wind picked up, sending dust swirling around their feet. Behind them, Lily called out something to the other kids, who were now awake and rubbing their eyes. Marie turned, her expression softening as she watched them. "They think it's an adventure," she said quietly. "I tell them we're just on a long trip." "And you?" Nathan asked. "What do you believe?" She smiled, but there was no joy in it. "I believe I'm doing what I have to do." Nathan nodded again. That was an answer he knew well. As the morning warmed, he offered to buy them breakfast from a small gas station nearby. Marie hesitated, but the kids were clearly hungry. She finally accepted with a simple thank you. They sat together at a cracked picnic table behind the station, 3 children, 2 tired adults, and the unspoken bond of people who had all been knocked down but kept getting back up. Over stale donuts and orange juice, Marie began to open up. Not in long stories, but in pieces. Her ex had become violent, unpredictable. She had stayed too long, believing he might change. When the last night came, she didn't wait for a better chance. She packed the kids in the car while he was gone and drove east without a plan. The only thing she left behind was fear. "He doesn't know where we are," she said. "I don't think he cares, but I had to get them out." Nathan listened without interrupting. He had no words that could fix what she had lived through. But sometimes, being heard was more than enough. He told her a bit of his own story, how his wife had passed 2 years ago in a car accident, how Lily was all he had left, how jobs had come and gone, and how he had spent more nights in the truck than in a real bed. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he said, "but I never stopped trying." Marie looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time, her eyes didn't just hold tiredness, they held recognition. Someone else who understood. "I'm scared," she said. "Every day." "Me too," Nathan replied. They didn't say much more after that. The kids played in the dirt, laughing like they hadn't been hungry the night before. And for a few short hours, the world felt almost normal. As the sun climbed higher, Marie stood up and looked toward the highway. "There's a diner a few miles down," she said. "Someone told me they might be hiring, maybe dishwashing or tables. I can walk." Nathan offered to watch the kids while she went. Marie hesitated, unsure. But after a moment, she nodded. "Thank you," she said again. "I don't know why you're helping us." Nathan didn't need to think, because someone should have helped me, and no one did. Marie didn't answer, but she turned and began to walk, shoulders straight, steps steady. Nathan watched her disappear down the road, the sun behind her, dust rising with every step. He looked at the kids, then at Lily. He didn't know what would come next. But something had already changed. They weren't strangers anymore. They were people trying to make it through, together. The road shimmered under the late morning sun as Marie disappeared toward the diner, her feet steady, her hope uncertain. Back at the rest stop, Nathan watched her go with quiet respect. She didn't walk like someone chasing a dream. She walked like someone with no other choice. Eli and June were sitting on the edge of the picnic table, sharing what was left of a gas station juice box. Lily had pulled out her crayons and was showing them how to draw flowers on napkins. Their laughter was light, real, the kind that didn't match their tired clothes or worn shoes. And for a moment, it made Nathan believe that maybe the worst wasn't permanent. A few hours later, Marie returned, her face unreadable. Nathan stood up when he saw her coming. Her hair was pulled back, her shirt damp from sweat, but her steps were quicker this time. "They hired me," she said, almost in disbelief. "Dishwashing for now. Maybe serving tables if someone quits." Nathan smiled. "That's a start." She nodded, breathing deeply. "It's not much, but it's something." That afternoon, they made a plan. Marie would work mornings, and Nathan would watch the kids. When she came back, he'd try to find day labor around town. Neither of them had money for daycare, and trust wasn't something Marie gave easily. But something in Nathan had earned it. They moved the cars to the side lot of a nearby church. The pastor didn't ask questions. He simply nodded when Nathan explained they needed somewhere safe to park for a while. Behind the small chapel, they found shade, water, and a place to rest without being chased away. Each morning, Marie walked to the diner. She washed dishes until her hands were raw, then walked back, always tired but never defeated. Nathan took care of the children, making peanut butter sandwiches, reading them stories, and fixing little things around the truck and Marie's wagon. He also found work. A woman down the road needed her fence repaired. Someone else needed a yard cleaned up. He was paid in small bills and warm meals. It wasn't steady, but it helped. Some nights, they sat by a borrowed lantern, the kids asleep, and talked in quiet tones. They didn't share everything, but they didn't need to. The silence between them had shifted. It was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. Marie told him she used to work in a bookstore before everything fell apart. She loved old stories, especially the kind where broken people found their way home. Nathan shared how he used to fix up old cars with his father. He missed the smell of engine oil and the sound of tools clinking on concrete. "Do you think this is forever?" Marie asked one night, not looking at him. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but maybe it's enough for now." The children began to change too. Eli was still guarded, but he smiled more. June laughed loudly, even when she spilled juice or dropped a sandwich. Willie taught them songs and shared her favorite bedtime story over and over. They had so little, but they had each other. Then, one morning, as they prepared to head into town, Marie climbed into the passenger seat of Nathan's truck. She looked at him, her face serious. "I need to tell you something." He turned off the engine. "The night we met," she said slowly, "I had told the kids it was our last try. I had no money, no food. I was going to give up. Not on life, but on trying. I thought we'd just sleep and wait for whatever came next." Nathan said nothing. He just listened. "Then you showed up," she whispered, "with a sandwich and kind eyes, and suddenly we had a tomorrow." Her words settled into the truck like a quiet wind. "You saved us," she said, "not for praise. Be." Nathan shook his head. "No, I just saw you, that's all." "That's all it takes sometimes," Marie replied. "Someone willing to see." They drove in silence after that, the good kind of silence, the kind where things don't need to be said anymore. At the diner, Marie stepped out and turned to him. "Thank you," she said, "for giving us borrowed tomorrows." Nathan didn't reply. He simply nodded and watched her walk into the building, her shoulders a little straighter, her steps a little stronger. Back at the church lot, Nathan found Lily playing hopscotch with June. Eli was building something out of sticks and rocks. And for the first time in weeks, Nathan didn't feel like a man searching for direction. He felt like a man who had found his place, even if just for a little while. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The wind rolled in without warning, carrying with it the sharp scent of rain and the promise of a restless night. Dark clouds gathered quickly above the small town, swallowing the sun and casting long shadows across the parking lot behind the church where Nathan, Marie, and the children had been staying. Nathan stood beside his truck, watching the sky. The weather radio had warned of a sudden storm, the kind that didn't last long but hit hard. They'd made it through hot days and cold nights, but this was different. The cars they slept in wouldn't hold up against heavy wind and rain. Marie stepped out of the diner just as the first drops began to fall. Her shirt stuck to her back, soaked within seconds, but she walked quickly toward Nathan, her arms wrapped around a paper bag filled with leftover food. "It's coming fast," she said, out of breath. "We need to find shelter." They didn't waste time. The old couple Nathan had helped with yard work lived just outside of town. He remembered their kindness and hoped it hadn't faded. He drove there, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Marie followed behind in her car, eyes fixed on the road. By the time they reached the house, water was rising along the sides of the street. Thunder cracked loudly, making the kids jump. Nathan knocked on the door, his heart racing. After a long moment, the door creaked open. The old man stood there, holding a lantern. Without asking questions, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said, Storm like this, no one should be out there. They didn't bring much, just a few bags, a blanket, and the leftover sandwiches. The couple led them to a tiny trailer in the backyard. It had been used for storage, but it had a roof and walls and space enough for all of them to sleep without getting soaked. As the storm raged outside, they sat inside the trailer, legs crossed, backs against the walls. The kids played quietly with a deck of cards they found in a drawer. Lily braided June's hair, while Eli looked out the small window, counting the seconds between lightning and thunder. Marie sat close to Nathan, her hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a quiet storm of their own. "I don't think I've ever felt this tired," she said. "You're still standing," Nathan replied. "That says something." "I'm only standing because you showed up," she whispered. He looked at her, not with pity, but with understanding. "We all need someone, once in a while." The night passed slowly. The rain didn't stop until just before dawn. When they stepped outside, the ground was soaked, but the sky was clear. The old man waved from his porch and offered breakfast inside. The kids laughed over eggs and toast, their voices echoing through the quiet house. In the days that followed, things started to shift. Marie was promoted to waitress. Her smile, once hidden under layers of worry, now came more easily. Nathan nodded, understanding what she meant. "But you gave us something I thought we'd lost." He looked at her gently. "What's that?" "A beginning," she said. "Not a new life, just the chance to start one." The wind moved through the grass like a soft song. The light faded, but the warmth remained. They never called each other family. They never tried to label what they had. But somewhere along the way, in small acts and shared burdens, they had become one. Not because it was easy, not because everything worked out perfectly, but because they stayed when it mattered. And in a world where people often pass each other without looking, that was more than enough.